Hi, my name is Solkit. I'm a junior at Penn State Bioengineering. Today I would like to share with you my story of how Jesus Christ has changed my life. I was originally born and raised in Korea, although I spent the last 11 years in Seattle. Much love is shared between my sister Sammy, who's also at Penn, my 90-year-old grandmother on her 9th year of battling Alzheimer's disease, my parents, and me. Ever since I was born, I was nurtured in a Christian family that encountered little difficulties. I was fortunate enough to attend a prestigious high school known for excellence in academics. My parents have been active participants of the church, both in Seoul and Seattle. Others touted our family as a successful Christian family, and I took such praises for granted because such was my belief too. However, I found out that with complacency comes danger. My high school education helped me to develop into an intellectual and athlete, but my love for Christ was at a standstill, in fact, deteriorating. Continued progress in academics and sports molded me into an arrogant individual who truly believed that at the center of my success was my talent and work ethic. Signs of a breakdown emerged. Full of pride, I let myself drift away from my fellow church friends. I tried to fill that void with smoking, drinking, and other real-world experiences, but I was caught in the dilemma where success did not bring joy. I started cutting myself at times because the burning sensation helped me to reaffirm that I'm still alive. I intentionally injured opposing team's players during sports games that hurt my team's chance at a state championship race. The result of a presumptuous self-idolizer was a terrible one, but as C.S. Lewis once put it, God whispers to us in our pleasures but shouts in our pains, and it was during this painful time of my life that I first encountered the true love of Christ. He told me that he's not going to let me go. Christ was true to his words when he led me to Grace Covenant Church freshman year. Rebellious and doubtful, I tried my best to avoid being sucked into a church community at first. But such an attempt failed as I was dragged to Myerson V1 by a senior I met through an on-campus a cappella group. GCC has provided me with a band of brothers and sisters who stuck with me throughout thick and thin. But truthfully, rebuilding a strong relationship with Christ was not my priority. Oftentimes, I found myself coming to church simply to meet my friends. My relationship with Christ seemed to be moving along the right path, but very sluggishly. My prayers before sleep remained unchanged since middle school, in fact. After quickly thanking him for a good day, I would beg him not to let me run to Korean Ghost. During grad night in 2008, a senior urged us to understand that the greatest joy in college is to live for him. I was moved but remained unconvinced. I couldn't offer up my all to God. Last semester, I fell into yet another spiritual slump. Relationships were severed, friendships were broken, and hearts were shattered. Unable to control myself physically, emotionally, and spiritually, my academic performance hit rock bottom. In order to console myself, I started going back to the old unhealthy habits. My pride wouldn't let me turn to God. It led me to believe that this would only be temporary. But as the semester wore on, I felt more and more powerless and angry. I shifted the blame to others to make myself a victim of all my problems. I intentionally sought to scar the hearts of people whom I loved and cared, as if that might compensate for my own pains. I knew I was making the matters worse with my negative attitude, but I couldn't get myself to stop because I wanted people to notice how hurt I am. The anger and pain that was bottled up inside me was hacking away at my self-esteem and my sense of identity. During winter break, I told my parents that I don't want to go back to school. Even when I got back to school this semester, nothing seemed to be changing. I was still slipping and making mistakes, digging myself further and further into the hole of misery. Especially during the winter retreat, I got so frustrated because no matter how I reached out, I just couldn't feel Jesus. I couldn't get myself to unclog the line of communication that has been blocked for such a long time. When Pastor Young was praying for me that night, however, he said something familiar. That God is still not letting go of me, but that he's holding on to me more tightly than ever. He wants me to stop being stubborn and to surrender everything to him. All this time, I blamed Jesus for his silence during my trials, but in truth, he had been there for me all along. When I looked down in the sand I assumed that the one set of footprints were my own, but those footprints were those of Jesus Christ when he had carried me out from my downfall. 12 years ago, I was hiking with my dad when an abrupt rainfall inundated the mountain. During my way down, I slipped before a flooded river and drifted fast towards a riverfall. The body of a small child was far too feeble to resist the massive flux, and my head struck a large boulder, and I slowly lost conscience. For the first time in my life, I had given up all hope, until something strong and warm held me tightly. Upon watching my drift away, my father had jumped into the devouring river himself to rescue me, and it was my father's very arm that held on to me with so much conviction and desperateness. And this is what I envision whenever I think of God who never lets me go. God loves me so much to bring me back to him again and again, despite my flaws, wrongdoings, and denials. Just as my father jumped into the dangerous river to save my life, our Father sent his only Son to this world to save us from drifting away further. I still struggle so much to place him in the center of my life, but the very fact that I'm so weak is an alarming but blissful motivation to lay down everything before him. Before I close, I would like to share a verse that I came across during my quiet times with God. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. 2 Corinthians 12.